This is the podcast known affectionately around the world as
All things SEO and some things steak and margaritas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I got a few things on my mind. What do you got in your mind in the world of SEO and otherwise?
Well, you know how often we complain about WordPress and how it's insecure and gets hacked frequently.
Yes, I do.
It turns out that WordPress isn't the only platform that has that problem, and
Do
that you are
tell.
like you are likely to run into that with any platform that is released and then never looked at or touched again. Another way of saying that is a website is like any other piece of technology. And after 5 years, it's showing its age. And if you've got your website up and going for 10 years and maybe once a year you upload a new PDF insurance certificate to it and nothing else has changed, you might be in for a world of hurt one day when one day you go to your website, which most business people, they don't go to look at their website every day,
Right.
especially if they've only updated it twice in the past 10 years. And then somehow they notice, oh, I click on any of the things on my website and they all produce errors. What's going on? And we say, oh, well, we'll go take a look. By the way, this particular customer is not an Michigan SEO Group customer, because if they were, the Michigan SEO Group team would probably be looking at their website every day or every week or something and would notice this sooner rather than later. And furthermore, their site would not have sat there 10 years with no updates or security stuff done to it. But that was not the case here. So we go and look, and it turns out that this website was designed by some creative graphic guy 10 years ago who probably hired some random person to do the programming and use some random CMS. And it's been sitting there all by itself for 10 years until some hacker noticed it and hacked into it and did all this crazy stuff. So we restored it from backup. We put a double password and an extra layer of protection in front of it. And we made sure that none of the scripts that remained without the password had the ability to write files behind the scenes. And we told the customer, so we were able to do this. Here's why you were hacked, because you have a website that's like 10 years old and never had any security updates. And it's probably time for a new one. But these are all the things we did to make it secure in the meantime. And speaking of business class web hosting,
Yes.
uh, we kind of anticipate stuff like this. So we've got multiple web servers, and anybody who has a site they want us to host that we didn't design, it's like some third party site, we put it on a special web server that's all locked down and it's put in Docker containers. Because when you're on a shared server, if somebody hacks into your site and it's not secure, it's possible they could get into everybody else's site or your server or do all this other nefarious stuff. So we locked it down in its own Docker container. So the worst that was going to happen is they got into this one site because of the insecure code that somebody wrote 10 years ago. But it absolutely did not get into anything else or affect anybody else.
Rockstars. I love that. So that's on the IT hosting side, and it is great stuff for people. You alluded to how the SEO team would be looking at websites that we work on, and 100% that's true. It's kind of surprising to me. We've gone over and above to make sure our processes are great. I meet with the team on Mondays. We meet with the team on Fridays. We review websites of our clients on a very regular basis. We do monthly reports. I mean, we do website maintenance. We're looking at them all the time. And it's just still funny to me when I have somebody come to me and says, oh, uh, I've got a whatever, you name the brand of hosting and, generic hosting and generic content management system. And, everything's fine. Well, maybe it is. Chances are probably it's not, especially if they're trying to do really robust SEO. But as you said, it's just a matter of time, whether it's a week, a month, a year. This stuff is going to break down. There's hackers, there's theme updates, there's all kinds of things that cause people trouble. And then they say, hey, I don't get any business from my website, right? I'm just my kind of business is referrals only, or we have to do trade shows. Nothing else brings me any business. Well, you don't know if online, right, websites and social media, et cetera, are going to bring you business because you're really not doing it. You might think you're doing it, but you're doing a really bad job of it. You can't
You know,
conclude that that doesn't work if you're not doing a great job of it.
yeah, when somebody says that, we don't get any business from our website. You know what let me translate that. Somebody else is eating your lunch because somebody else is getting website or business from their website.
Yeah, and it's like, well, this is a certain mindset, right? But they have no idea what opportunity they're losing. I mean, none of us really do, right? It's a vast internet. And in theory, there's this whole amount of business we could get in the IT world or the SEO world that we're not getting. But the less you're doing, the less you're out in that world effectively doing a great job, the less you know what you're missing out on. And somebody is doing that work. They're taking a little time to research, to find out who's looking at that kind of stuff, what questions they're asking, what platforms they're on. And if they're doing that research and they're reaching out in that way, they're eating your lunch, as you said. And is that 3x, 10x, 100x? What are you leaving on the table? And are you coming to us or somebody else and going, I'm just barely making it in business? Well, there might be a reason for that.
Yeah, and if even if they're not finding you because they go into search, search for this kind of a plumber or this kind of a widget. Before they do business with you, people are going to go check out your website. If it looks 10 years old or dated or doesn't have the right information, they're picking up the phone.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of pieces to get right. And sometimes it's overwhelming. I grant you that. There's no possible world in which you get every piece perfectly right, perfectly every time. However, the more you get right, the better you're going to do.
Well, it's a process, or as our Canadian friends say, it's a process. And it's just something you got to continually work at, and you gradually improve and get it better and better and better. And as you find new things or other things to focus on, and it is complicated and it is confusing, but there are experts who can help. Michigan SEO Group.
Indeed.
Listen, when we started this business, we kind of felt guilty about, charging people a couple $100 a month to do this because, in our mind, it's easy. We know what to do. But it just turns out that we tell people how to do it for themselves, and two things would happen. One, they just wouldn't do it. Or in the rare case they did, they would do it wrong. Right. And it was very rare. I mean, even though we told people exactly what to do, very rare that somebody would actually do it and do a halfway decent job at it and do it consistently.
You're absolutely right. And it's gotten way more complicated, right? Way more technological. There's more moving parts. The art and the science has evolved tremendously since 2006 when we started this nonsense. And yeah, it's just harder than it is. And if you're serious about business, right? I mean, there are some businesses that can probably thrive without online, but they're becoming more and more rare. You said something interesting that made me think about a topic I've been harping on quite a bit lately to our team, and that is use the word search. And, most of us, when we think of search, we think of Google. Sometimes we'll think of Google Maps. If we're a little off the mainstream, we might think of DuckDuckGo or Bing. But I've been predicting to our team, for the last several weeks that the new AI platforms, generative AI, is going to start replacing search for some people. Voice and AI generated results. I mean, of course, Google search is a form of AI, but what everybody's think of is AI now, like ChatGPT and stuff. That stuff is going to become search. And so I told our team a couple of weeks ago, I want you to start dabbling with that. Check and see how our clients are doing in other search. Type into ChatGPT, what's the best SEO company in Southeast Michigan, and see what we get. And it's been informative. It's not completely separate from what you see on Google, but it's going to evolve. And lo and behold, after saying that repeatedly and getting the team on board with it, yesterday the news broke that OpenAI, which is the company that created ChatGPT, is creating a search product to compete with Google. So it's fun to be right sometimes, and it just means that we're going to have to stay on top of that so that when we work for our clients, they are not only showing up on DuckDuckGo, they're also showing up on Bing, on Google, on Yahoo, on AOL dial-up. We want their MySpace pages to show up, but we also want them to show up on whatever these new search platforms or styles are. And that just means that we got to stay up on that and find out what the criteria are.
Well, you know what they say. A website is like any other piece of technology, and it needs to be updated.
Yes,
and
indeed.
we've had to change our SEO tune over the years as new things, for mobile compatible. All the didn't used to be that websites had to be mobile compatible. Then all of a sudden it was. Then all of a sudden it matters how fast your website loads. Then all of a sudden, Google starts ranking your site on how many annoyances it has, like pop-ups and things like that. It's not going to display it as highly in the search results. So stuff's changing all the time. Got to be on top of your game.
As I think about AI in the future, Google does a great job, an okay job keeping the annoyances from reaching my screen. Don't you think it would be nice to have some like bubble around you that you could set the annoyance level and block out human beings sometimes? Well, you
Yeah, you
did
put
that. You created a bubble. That bubble is called Maui. Probably helps a little,
yeah, you put on these glasses, and all of a sudden nobody's around you. You can't see anyone.
right?
You're like
Well,
that guy from the old Twilight Zone episode who nobody else was on the earth, and all he wanted to do is read his books.
oh my God, I went last Sunday. I may have told you this. I had a bunch of very nice, beautiful women in my life who said my technology's not working, and that turned out to be a very expensive day that involved two trips to the Apple store, um, or actually one trip to Best Buy and then one trip to the Apple store. When I got to the Apple store to buy a new laptop, I had the sinking feeling because I was walking into this crowded place. It was the day they launched their new headsets. And I'm
Oh,
like, you got to be kidding me. Like this, is my wife's laptop really have to die on the day when Apple launches a new website? And of course I could have ordered it, but the configuration I wanted, they happen to have. So it wasn't as horrible as I thought it was going to be. But what is always funny to me as an old stodgy guy that says get off my lawn a lot is to watch people walk around with those virtual reality headsets. They just look like such idiots. And they're probably having a really amazing time in there. But from the outside, it looks so absurd and so annoying that I just can't ever see myself putting on one of those headsets unless I'm locked in a closet somewhere and nobody is within 100 feet of me. You know what's not annoying?
steak and margaritas.
Exactly. What do you got?
Well, I was sometime watched the YouTubes
Yes.
and some of the steak guys and cooking guys I watched, they would cook these tri-tip steaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get all excited and I would run to the grocery store in Michigan and I'd say, I want a tri-tip steak. And the guy behind the counter's like, wah, wah, wah.
What's
Like,
that?
yeah, apparently it's big on the West Coast, not so big in the Midwest.
Right.
So I had just resigned myself to living a life free of tri-tip steaks. But
Unacceptable.
you go to the most pedestrian grocery store in Hawaii, and tri-tips are all over the place.
Different
So
world.
I've gotten some of them
Mm-hmm.
and done the traditional reverse sear or stick it in the smoker reverse sear, and they can be quite delightful. Sometimes they can be tough. But then I saw somebody say, you can cook a tri-tip like a brisket in the smoker.
What?
And I thought to myself, that's crazy. And I
Yeah.
found several videos claiming that, yes, you can do this and it's delicious and it tastes like a brisket and only takes like 4 or 5 hours versus what's a brisket, 12, 24 hours, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I found one guy said, don't do it. It's a waste of time. Tri-tip needs to be medium rare. And that seemed to be the noise threshold. Like there's always one guy out there that's complaining, but everybody else said it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I
Oh,
did it. Man,
yes. And
Super Bowl Sunday. First, we went over to Brenda the Canadian's new condo. She's the girlfriend of this guy I know here, and she bought a new condo down the street. And she just has, I mean, her condo just hangs over the ocean. And so she just had the thing remodeled. So the TV's sitting on the floor, but it's this grand glass open. So you can either watch the Super Bowl or you can watch the whales flopping and playing and the dolphins. And it's just like, wow. So we did that until halftime. And then we came home and I stuck that tri-tip in the smoker.
ooh,
And I did it for about 2 hours until the internal temperature was 165. And then I took it out and I double wrapped it in foil with a little butter and soy sauce in there. And I stuck it back in the smoker until another 2 hours or so, till the internal temperature was 205. Then I took it out and I let it rest for half hour. And then I sliced it up, and there it was, a delicious brisket made out of tri-tip.
Wow. That is a great story told well. So I realize it's not strictly speaking steak, but if you had to give it an SAS, a steak assessment score, what would you give it?
Well, the highest compliment that I can give it, because I just did this last week, and we're having friends over tonight, and I asked the Amelita what I should make, and she said, "You should make that tri-tip brisket again."
So we're certainly in the 9 range.
Yes.
Fair enough. That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to try it, but I'll have to order a tri-tip from Snake River Farms or something to do it.
I'm sure that would make it way better than me going to the pedestrian grocery store and getting the cheapest tri-tip they have.
No complaints, no complaints. That's Rockstar. I think it's been so long. We a couple weeks since we've done this podcast. And I don't think I've said this on prime time. Did I mention to you the day I had when a family friend of ours occasionally suffers from a little angst, a little anxiety, and I said to her, "Listen, I'm on my way to Costco. Come with me. It'll get your mind off your angst, and while we're there, I'll buy you some steak." And she said, "Oh, okay, that'll be a nice distraction." So I went to Costco, and um, I may have mentioned this before, but Costco often sells this really thin sliced New York strip. They call it previous frozen New York strip. It's not the greatest New York strip on the planet, but you get a whole sheet of it, right? And it's really thin sliced. And what I do is I toss that in a frying pan with a little olive oil and a little soy sauce, a little minced ginger, and it takes 45 seconds aside to cook because it's so thin. You just cook, drop it in a bowl, and I'll do 5 or 6 rounds of that. So I'll get this big stacked bowl of that stuff. And then what I'll do when I'm eating carbs, which I'm not right now, but when I'm eating carbs, I'll put that on a bunch of sticky rice and all the soy sauce and the meat fat and the olive oil. It creates this lovely sauce. And then throw some fresh scallions on top. And it is just, I mean, it's just hard to stop eating. It's so good. So I told her how to make that stuff. So she went home with her gift of thin sliced New York strip from me and cooked it up, and I started getting text. My text blew up about an hour later with all the great stuff that she was eating. So she had the added creativity of putting an egg on it, which I thought was a really good idea. And it looks amazing. But for my part, I couldn't stop myself. I bought a package of New Zealand lamb chops. I don't like the taste of Michigan lamb. It's too strong for me, but New Zealand lamb is lovely. And they had a sale on tomahawks, 2 in 1 package for like 18 bucks a pound, which is pretty good in this part of the world. So I bought 2 of them, tossed one in the freezer, and reverse seared the other one in the oven, not in the sous vide, and had it. My wife and I had it for lunch, I think. And we each had 1 lamb chop for lunch, and then we had half of that tomahawk. And it's just so reliable. You and I've got the system dialed in. You toss a little olive oil and show you on that stuff. I put some kosher salt on there, fresh, fresh cracked pepper, a little garlic powder. If I'm feeling fancy, I'll go deep and I'll put a few other things, maybe a little bit of paprika, a little sweet paprika, maybe some red pepper flakes, a few other things. Reverse sear that to perfection. I reverse seared it on hardwood charcoal with that flavor, so it was lovely. And then brought it in the house, let it sit for a minute, sliced it up, and sprinkled a little truffle salt on the top. And oh my God, that first bite, man, just gives you goosebumps. It was so wonderful. And we sort of walked around with our eyes half open the rest of the day after eating all that meat. But man, that was a great experience. Took a half a Thursday off to make steaks, to eat steaks, to take a 20-minute nap, and then wake up with a big smile on my face and go back to work. No complaints, no comeback.
No comeback, no complain.
That's right. I like this world of steak and margaritas, and I plan to do a whole lot more of it.
Well, my new flamethrower just arrived.
What? So now you have a flamethrower in Michigan and in Hawaii?
Yes, I do. I went to Amazon and well, first of all, I went to the hardware store and they don't have them. Maybe they're illegal here. I don't know. So I went to Amazon. It's like, well, I like the one I have. And of course they say, we don't ship to Hawaii. Wah, wah, wah. So
Man,
I picked some other one and it was here 2 days later.
Wow.
And it turns out they have the little propane or butane things right at the grocery store.
Nice.
So I bought one of those, plugged her in. Whoosh.
Oh, it's so much fun. I don't know. I guess if I had to argue one choice or the other, I would say finishing on a hardwood charcoal gives you better flavor.
Yes.
It's a better sear, but few things in life are more fun than firing up that flamethrower and taking it to whatever diabolical steak experience you're about to have.
Yes, indeed.
I like it. Well, I don't know about you, but that made me really, really hungry. And in on Michigan time, it is just about the end of my 15 and a half hour fast. So I'm going to go home and tear into something that involves meat and salad and feel really, really good about myself.
Look at you. Look at you go, little buddy.
Yes, sir. Well, I don't even know how to feel about that statement. Rock and roll. Have a great day. New steak and margarita adventures await us that we can share with the world on next week's Steak and Margarita podcast.